You're a third party, neutral party. You don't represent either side of the
Right.
coin.
I mean, he was crying, I was crying, it was just such a beautiful story. So I was just asking him, what was her favorite part about the house? And he said, this is really funny, but it was these light posts that he put up for her outside the house. She just loved them. And if you think I didn't drive out there to take pictures of those light posts for this man,
Did you really?
oh, I did. Oh, I so did.
Welcome to Conversations with Yvonne, where today we're going to be diving into the world of escrow with an expert who will simplify the process and share valuable tips for our buyers and sellers. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Yvonne Brank with the Brank Home Team here at John L. Scott, and today I have a wonderful guest from Equity Title and Escrow, and I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am Nicole Giamatti. I'm the founder and first vice president of Equity Title.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for joining me today. As I mentioned to you, this is really just a conversation about escrow and, just giving some valuable tips to our buyers and sellers. So would you mind sharing what is escrow and why is it important in the real estate industry?
Escrow is the neutral third party between the realtors, the buyers, sellers, and the lender.
Mm-hmm.
And we facilitate all of the recording of the legal documents, handle getting all of the documents for the lender signed, and the transferring of the title from seller to buyer, as well as handling all of the money. So earnest money, funds to close, lender wire, seller proceeds, getting all those out. I mean, it's super important just from the neutral standpoint so that all of the instructions on all sides can be carried out.
And a great protection for both the buyer and the seller.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely, yes.
Because again, you're a third party, neutral party. You don't represent either side of the coin. And so by doing that, you're carefully, looking at the contracts and making sure that we all adhere to what the contract says.
Yes. And in Washington, it's unique because we have limited practice officers that are actually reviewing the documents. So we are licensed by the Washington State Bar, practice law in respect to just real estate closing transactions. So we're, experienced knowledge. We hold the same credentials as an attorney, education, ongoing, all those different things. So yeah, it's a great protection, neutral third party for the consumer.
Oh, good. So how does escrow fees work? Who's responsible? The buyer, the seller, the agents?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question. I think a lot of people don't know. Escrow fee is generally split between the seller and the buyer. And the escrow fee is based on the sale price. I think what a lot of people don't know is it is generally split between the seller and the buyer, but that's actually a negotiable item. So it can be negotiated, and it's generally split between the seller and buyer, but if negotiated otherwise in the contract, we adhere to that.
That's good to know because people who pays for that? And now they know. Everything is negotiable in real estate. Everything is negotiable. So for sellers, are there anything they need to do to prepare for escrow?
Absolutely. One of the things thank you so much for asking this. So one of the things that I heard this somewhere a long time ago where before sellers take the photos off the wall and start packing up, start gathering all the information. So we're looking for payoff information, and a lot of that's done electronically now, but some of it's still in paper. We're looking for HOA contact information. If there's any liens or judgments that will be taken care of at closing, we want to locate that paperwork, locate any letters. Sometimes a lender has transferred a loan to another service provider and they mail you a letter, and maybe the payments haven't even started yet. You're kind of in between where they're collected by the old lender, but they're going to be, as of this date, the new lender's going to take over. You want to gather up all that information and just have it handy, even if you just have it in your notes. What's your loan number? Any utility companies, who are those? What are the account numbers? Because we're going to ask you all that information on our information letter, and we're going to use that along with your authorization. Once you go mutual, we're going to use that to clear title and to order payoffs and to prepare your settlement statement.
That is great information to know. And so once we go mutual, normally you guys will send out information to the seller. And what is that information called? How do you guys
Yeah, so it's a seller information letter and authorization all in one. Most companies deliver that information like us electronically, but we also can deliver that information in paper, in a few other ways as well. And that information is really just a discovery. We're looking to gather in any payoff information, essentially anything that's going to be on title that we're going to pay
Hmm.
off, because in your contract, you're giving your buyer free and clear title. So we're going to do a search. We're going to pay off everything that's on there. And depending on how you write your offer, if it says to pay utilities at closing, we'll be reaching out to the utility companies as well, which one thing I think sellers don't realize, or actually buyers too, that not all utility companies are paid through closing. So even if that box is checked, certain utility companies don't have lien rights to the property. And so they're not paid through escrow. They actually run with the person. A good example of that is Puget Sound Energy, for example. That bill is going to run with the person. So if you don't pay it when you go to your new home, they're going to send you a bill, right?
Right.
But Tacoma Public Utilities, they'll lien the property. And so we need to pay them. Seattle Public Utilities, another one. All, Seattle City Light, same thing. Even though they're lights like Puget Sound Energy, they have lien rights and they will lien the property. So we actually do need to pay those through escrow if it's elected on the contract. They don't have to be paid through escrow, but they can. Can I give one more tip in that area?
You sure can.
Another tip is that if you are doing a rent back, so say a seller is going to be staying in the property, one thing to consider is having utilities paid outside of escrow, because you're still in the property and it gets kind of confusing. A buyer comes to the table and they're like, well, hey, wait a second, they're going to be in the property. I don't want to take over utilities and be paying for them.
Right.
So you can pay them through escrow, and we navigate through that. And it's not an issue on our side, but it can get kind of tricky at the table for a buyer that is just really not interested in paying utilities after, when you're still in the home.
Correct. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So that was more on the seller side, the seller information letter and what they can expect. Is there anything the buyer should be expecting? Do they get like a buyer information letter? Do they?
Yeah. Just like the seller, they also, same thing, they get an electronic delivery from most of all of our companies here in Washington. But same thing, that can be delivered in many different ways, which, going back old school to paper, some people just need paper still. But same thing, we're gathering information on them. One thing that's really important that I really want buyers to focus on is their vesting. How they want to come into title is very important. There's a lot of buyers I don't think realize that there's a lot of different ways that you can hold title, whether it be that you're holding title as an individual, as a married couple, you're maybe buying with a partner, are you doing rights of survivorship? And as a LPO, we cannot give you legal advice on that, but we can give you documentation that breaks down each way to hold title so that you can make an informed decision on how you want to hold title. So that's something to really be thinking about, really at the time that they just even start working with a lender and start working with a real estate broker. You should really think about that, and that we have that information available.
Now, do you send that to them at the start of the relationship when you're sending the buyer information letter? Are you sending something like that, asking them to think about?
Yeah, all that information goes out into our information letter, but a lot of that is a lot of information. And I believe that, especially with first-time homebuyers, it's better to just have a one-to-one conversation so that you can answer questions. Buyers have so much going on when they're, first off, when they make that huge decision, it's just so exciting. And then all of the paperwork, not even just really from escrow, because escrow for a buyer is really asking for basic information. So not too overwhelming there, but let's face it, lenders need a lot of information in today's world to qualify buyers. It's a lot of gathering. It can just be a lot of digging, and it can be exhausting. And in this market where it's super competitive, they can be going through the trials that it takes to get your offer accepted and all those fun things. So there's not really too much on the side, but I think it's just something to talk about and not just necessarily leave them to their own devices. I think that would be a tip for me, for both buyers and sellers, to remember that your escrow partner is your neutral third party, but we actually work for you.
Yes.
So you're paying for our services. We work for you. Your questions, we are here for you. All of us in the industry, we are all here for you. We want this to be the best experience possible. So don't feel you need to navigate the journey on your own. You don't need to YouTube it. You don't need to Google it. You don't need to chat GPT it. Just call us. We're
Yes.
here. Yeah.
Matter of fact, we prefer that they don't YouTube it
Yeah.
or chat GPT it.
Yeah.
Call
Yeah.
us. That's what we're here
Yeah.
for. That's what you're paying us for.
Yeah.
Because depending on where you get your information from on YouTube or chat, it could be totally different than where you're living
Yeah.
right now. So,
Yeah, I think that that's really important too. And also too, just speaking with a professional when it comes to your home buying experience, because how the process was 5 years ago,
oh, yes.
just things are a little bit different.
Yeah.
There can be just differences, and you want it to be unique. When I think
Hmm.
when you YouTube it, or you are talking to someone that's not a professional, maybe a family or friend, they're kind of overlaying their experience onto you.
Yes.
But this is your experience. This is your real estate broker. This is your transaction, your escrow professional, and we're there for you to have, get firsthand information, get your
Yes.
questions firsthand answered, and not through the lens of someone else's experience, wherever they were.
Great tip. I really enjoyed that one. So, can you share? Because I know we start off saying, we're going to talk about escrow, but the other side of escrow is title.
Yes.
And what is the difference? What is the process, I guess, for title?
Yeah. So great question. Thank you so much. So escrow, just to recap, neutral third party, kind of like the puzzle maker. Everyone brings their puzzle pieces to the table. We handle all the money. We put everything together, right? Sign everyone, recording. That's the escrow side of it. Title is really the easiest way to explain title insurance is ensuring that the past is the past, and those that are involved in the transaction, the sellers, that they're the right representatives and owners to that property and have the authority to do so, to sell the property or encumber the property, whatever they want to, whatever they're doing with the property. We are ensuring that. And we also, the title insurance protects you from a certain, depending on which product you opt for, but the standard protects you against fraud and a number of different other claims and things.
So I know for me, the way I explain title is it is to make sure that there's no liens, judgment, claims, anything attached to that home. So when you buy the home, purchase the home, you're purchasing a very clean title with no baggage, no past.
Yeah. So
So,
title actually tells you about the property. It tells you if there are payoffs, liens, judgments, who the owner is, who the authorized signers are. Once we've title will review any, if there's any entities on title that are vested, say trust, LLC, corporation, title requires the documentation, and they will line item out who is authorized to sign the documents, so that you ensure that the person that's doing whatever with the property does a discovery of anything that's a public record.
yes.
It also lists any easements or access easements, utility easements, anything like that. So who has access to your property? What is the legal description to your property? I think a lot of people, the consumer, seller, and buyers, don't really understand. They think it's just the address, but title is actually ensuring the legal, meaning there is a legal description for every property that is out there, and we can walk corner to corner to corner to corner of your property. We're actually not insuring the address. The address can be whatever it can be. Some condos actually have two addresses.
Mm,
A lot of people don't know that, but
I know
we're
that.
yeah, but we're actually insuring the legal to your property. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that title insurance protects. In reference to, so escrow is split evenly, generally 50-50 between seller and buyer, whereas title, the seller pays for the buyer's coverage, which is owner's coverage, and then the buyer pays for the lender's coverage, which is lender's coverage. So they
That's
split
good to
like
know.
that. It's also, those fees are also based on the sale price.
How do escrow officers coordinate with other parties, such as the lender and the real estate agents?
Good question. So there's certain touch points throughout the transaction that we want to keep everyone on the same page,
Hmm.
as well as the neutral third party. As we get information in, we have a fiduciary duty to keep everyone on the same page. So anything that could prevent a transaction from hitting the target closing date, new information that was discovered that could hinder one party or the other, we have to remain neutral. We
Hmm.
can't just deliver that information to one side, we have to make sure that everyone remains on the same side so that everyone remains neutral and has the same information and can have the same ability to make informed decisions based on the information that's being delivered to escrow. But there's certain touch points that we've just all as an industry identified basically based on feedback from realtors and feedback from the consumers that what are the points that are very important that they need to know to
Mhm.
really keep them in the excitement zone and limit anxiety or hey, I'm in the unknown, what's going on. So there's
Right.
multiple touch points throughout a transaction, and it's really just anything that's transpiring along the way, just keeping everyone on the same page is really key.
Good information. So, personal question here.
Yeah.
What is the most rewarding part about being an escrow officer?
Oh my goodness, I love this question. So, for me personally, it's just you are part of the American dream. You literally are part of the American dream. You are watching people whether they are selling or buying. This is the American dream that everyone is, that want to have home ownership. If you want to work towards it, that is a dream that is there. And for me personally, I do not come from a family where, everyone had homes. So I was the first one in my immediate family to buy a home.
Hmm.
And I worked in this business actually for quite a few years before I actually was sitting at the closing table. And I think prior to my own experience, it was really transactional. I was doing my job and it was really transactional until I realized how special it is and how much work it takes to get to this point. And just, it's
Yeah.
such a big milestone, right? And so, just the experiences that we've had seeing people that cry at the signing table, there's a story behind these transactions, whether it be they are first time home buyers, or some of the stories are, people are having to transition family members, elder family members out of their childhood home into secondary home. And
Hmm.
there's just the stories to me are, they really a Netflix series. I remember this one story. This gentleman came in and his wife had passed away and they were selling a home out on Hood Canal. And we just forgot to, he was so protected when he came in and, just really here for the documents. And so I just wanted to, talk to him and we just started talking before we got signing. And then he was just, he's like, tell me about this house, and he was just telling me about it. He actually built that house for his wife and for their family. And his wife had passed away and his children were older and they just really just didn't use it anymore. And it just didn't make sense to keep it. And so he was crying, I was crying, it was just such a beautiful story. So I was just asking him, what was her favorite part about the house? And he said, this is really funny, but it was these light posts that he put up for her outside the house. She just loved them. And if you think I didn't drive out there to take pictures of those light posts for this man, I
Did you
was,
really?
oh, I did. Oh, I so did. It was just, it's stories like that that you just never know. Every transaction is so unique. We had a transaction when we first actually opened here at Equity where we had two first-time home buyers on either side of their family. And it was both of their birthday months. And when they came out, we shot off confetti for them. And oh my gosh, the husband was crying. He was scooping up the confetti. He's like, can I have this? So then now we're crying. We're scooping up the confetti. And it's just, the dream is just amazing, even like through
Yes.
the pandemic, we were telling people like you get to tell your grandchildren and your grandchildren can tell their children that their great grandparent bought a house during the pandemic. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's just I love it. I love what we do and just being part of the story, just seeing the story. Just by the time they get to the signing table, it's a phenomenal story that has developed. They've walked hand in hand with their real estate broker and
Yes.
they've been guided, by their loan team and their real estate broker to the table. And it's almost like, they're like, and it's just so fun to be able to be part of that story.
Oh my God, you are just lighting up over
I
there.
love it, Yvonne. I love it. It's just, it's magical, like literally,
It
And
is.
I
It
mean,
is.
even, sometimes when you're dealing with someone that's handling an estate, that's a hard job being a
Yes,
personal representative or an administrator of an estate. People don't realize that's a really hard job. There's
it
often
is.
family members and things in the wings, and people are asking for things and wanting things to move along. It's a very thankless job. So, being able to sit down at the table with them and just allowing them to breathe and thanking them for doing, that job for their
Yes.
loved one or their friend, you can just see them relax and know that they carried out someone's wishes. And it's just a beautiful thing to be part of, honestly.
It is. It is. With technology, that has changed the process just a little bit. And what I mean by that is when it comes time to signing documents, you could do it electronically. You
Yes.
could do it, have someone come to your home, or you can go to the escrow office. Now,
Yeah.
I'm a favorite fan of the escrow office.
Oh, me
And
too.
and when I find out that my client is actually using the escrow office, I typically surprise them and show up, and they don't know I'm coming, right? But every time I come, I walk through that door, their eyes light up. They say, "Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here," because like you said, it is a big deal,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so to have someone that we've built that relationship, we're comfortable with each other, and I'm in the room and they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here," because
Yeah.
it's overwhelming to have to sign. I don't know how many documents. How many pages you think?
Oh gosh, anywhere from, like a seller, 60 to 80 pages, just depending on how long. I mean, what we're all
Yes,
signing,
and that
and
is
a loan package can be 100 plus pages.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's overwhelming to a first-time
Yes.
home buyer. So to have their agent come in, they're like, "Thank you," and I don't have to do anything. It's just the part of being there,
Yes, and
right?
I think I love that. I think that that is just so special. Like just greeting them, I see, just see brokers that are somewhat like, well, I don't want to be in the room because it's their personal information, and I totally understand that. And there are some people that that is a real factor for them.
Hmm.
But I just think even just being in the lobby to greet them, and remembering they selected you, they vetted you, so you are that calming assurance. It's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal. And I think it's just so special when there is time that allows a broker to do that. I think it is an extreme differentiator,
Hmm.
and not everyone does that. And it's a big deal when it
Is
does.
very,
Yeah. And
very good.
I do love the technology because it has its place as far as,
Yes.
the Ron signings. Some people really need that. It allows for international signings to take place a lot easier. But I am always, and the notaries that we have in our industry are extreme professionals. We vet our notaries. They are amazing. And it's to take nothing away from them. But when we can get them to the closing table, I think it's a significant
Yes.
thing. The actual walking into escrow, setting down to do, sign at the table. We had quite a few people that like to take social media posts or whatever just to share with their family and their friends and just document their journey. To do that at your home, or your current residence isn't the same factor. So I love when they do opt to come in the office. We of course want to do whatever is flexible for them,
Hmm.
which is leads me to another tip for sellers. We can sign sellers. Everyone can opt to, but we have a policy to sign sellers 7 to 10 days in advance. And it really allows for maximum flexibility. There's really a lot of times we have to wait until the loan documents come in, dictate when the buyer signs. So there can
Hmm.
be the documents can be date sensitive, the loan
Hmm.
documents, meaning the buyer cannot sign until a certain date, and that's due to disclosure. So that's really lender driven. But the seller really can be signing 7 to 10 days in advance. And that also takes a lot of pressure off. It gives
Yes.
max flexibility to take time off. I like to do that or we just like to do that because it allows more sellers to come into the office. I find when you get the further out that you give them time to allow their schedule, then they do want to come in the office.
Yes.
So I like that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Now, I know that you are over escrow and title, but what are some other things that your company does that people aren't aware of?
Yeah. So our parent company is Orange Coast Title, and they are a national company. We own our own 1031 exchange company. We own our own marketing company. Laurel Tree Promotions, JLM is our 1031. So I think that a lot of people don't realize that we also close commercial, residential. Yeah, I mean, we do a fair amount of both, but I
Hmm.
think the average person doesn't realize that we do all those different things.
I know that you guys have the notary service. Can anybody come, or how does that work? If they need a
When
document
you
signed or anything.
Great question. And I think that's a misunderstanding. So it's not like a bank where you can just walk in and just get a document signed.
Hmm.
But our actual notary errors and admissions insurance is actually held by our company. So we actually are limited to utilizing our notary stamp for our documents. So
Okay.
documents within a transaction, as well as oftentimes we get calls where we can draw quick claim deeds within our license. There's a long scope of documents that Washington LPOs can draw, real estate documents,
Hmm.
and commonly we're asked, can we draw a quick claim deed or things like that outside that have nothing to do with a transaction? And the answer to that is actually no. Within a transaction, within a real estate transaction, we definitely can. That is pertain to that transaction. So say they're doing a transaction, but they own with one property and they own another property. No, we can't. And also that our license is the scope of our license is here in Washington. So, for example, I can't draw documents for Nevada.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good to know as
Yeah.
well. Is there anything else you think the people should know?
Yeah, I think buyers and sellers need to be aware that the actual choice of title and escrow is theirs. I think while a lot of people, it is often left to the real estate broker, I think it is important that the consumer know that, and understand they are paying for this product and it is ultimately their choice and they
Yes.
should do their own vetting of
Hmm.
each company. They should do their own check, just like we would do anything else, right? I mean, even
Right.
we all read reviews and everything else when we're even just going to a restaurant. This is one of your largest transactions. So
Yes.
even asking questions, when your person, your real estate broker that you have vetted and you leave that decision to them, ask questions. Why do you use this company? Why do you pick that person? What do you know about that person? Get into the details. How many transactions have you done with that person that will be working on my transaction? I think it's okay to ask questions. The more, and just in general, that's just one of the things I think buyers and sellers, I'm often shocked when we can go through a whole transaction and a seller or buyer, they don't have one question. I mean, it's a big transaction. Anything that crossed your mind, you deserve an answer to, and
Hmm.
you should allow it to come out. There are zero questions that shouldn't be answered. And also too, before you sign documents, every question should be answered for you.
Yes,
Every
I
question,
agree with
even
that.
if it needs to be repeated. If you don't understand what's being explained, say that.
Yep.
There's zero reason why you should walk away from the signing table feeling like, oh, I wish I would have asked this or that. And if for whatever reason you have that feeling, make sure that that is gone before your
Yes,
closing date.
I
And
agree.
yeah, if for whatever reason you're not comfortable asking it at the table, reach out to your real estate broker immediately and they will ask it on your behalf for sure.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for joining me today with Conversations with Yvonne.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you for having me.
you're so welcome. If you have any questions about escrow title, I'm sure Nicole is available. We're going to leave her information down below. And again, thank you for joining us.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.